The grand hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with voices. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds sat in rising rows of seats. At the center stood High Elder Vox, his blue skin wrinkled with age, his 4 eyes blinking slowly as he waited for silence. "I come before you today with a warning," Vox said, his voice stronger than his old body suggested. "A new species has begun to reach for the stars. They call themselves humans." A ripple of laughter spread through the chamber. Grand Counselor Mira, tall and elegant with silvery skin that caught the light, stepped forward. "High Elder," she said, her voice sweet but her eyes cold. "We respect your wisdom, but surely this is not worth our time. These humans have barely left their own moon. Their ships are primitive, their weapons are basic. Why should the Council fear them?" Vox did not answer right away. Instead, he touched a control on his wrist. Above the central platform, a display appeared. It showed a blue-green planet, the third from a yellow star. "Observe," he said. 100 of their years ago they traveled by horse and sail. 50 years ago they split the atom. 20 years ago, they created worldwide information networks. Today they have permanent bases on their moon and are planning missions to their neighboring planet. "Many species advance quickly," said Counselor Drav, his thick arms crossed over his chest. "What makes these humans special?" "It is not just their speed," Vox replied. "It is their nature. Humans adapt faster than any species we have encountered. They thrive on challenge. They turn setbacks into advantages." He touched his wrist again. The display showed human history, their wars, their disasters, their triumphs. "Most importantly," Vox continued, "humans never give up. When they cannot go around an obstacle, they go through it. When they fall, they get back up stronger." "Grandy." Counselor Mira laughed and many joined her. "High Elder, with respect, they sound like children playing at being warriors. Their planet is still divided into nations that fight each other. How can they possibly threaten us?" Vox's ancient eyes narrowed. "I did not say they threaten us today. I said we should be cautious. The last species with such adaptability was the Krevan, and we all remember what happened to them." A hush fell over the room. The Krevan were not spoken of in polite company. Their empire had risen quickly and fallen even faster after challenging the Council's authority 3 centuries ago. "That was different," Mira said quickly. "The Krevan were aggressive by nature. From what we have observed, humans value peace." "Humans value survival," Vox corrected. "They will be peaceful if peace helps them survive. They will be warriors if war helps them survive. That is what makes them dangerous. They are whatever they need to be." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Vox could see he was losing. Them. They were too comfortable in their power, too certain of their superiority. "I ask only that we establish clear boundaries," Vox said. "Make contact now, while we can still impress them with our strength. Set rules before they learn there are no rules." "We will consider your advice, High Elder," Mira said, in a tone that meant they would do no such thing. "The council thanks you for your wisdom." Vox bowed his head and stepped away from the platform. As he shuffled toward the exit, his assistant Toll hurried to his side. "They will not listen," Toll whispered. "They never do," Vox replied. "But we have done our duty. Now we prepare." Captain James Reed stood on the bridge of the exploration vessel Pioneer, staring at the vast emptiness of space through the main view screen. At 45, Reed was considered young for a captain, but his sharp mind and cool head had earned him command of humanity's most advanced ship. "Anything on sensors, Dr. Lane?" he asked. Dr. Anna Lane, the ship's science officer, shook her head. Her fingers moved quickly over her console. "Nothing yet, Captain, just more empty space." Reed nodded. The Pioneer had been traveling beyond the edge of charted space for 3 weeks. Their mission was simple: go farther than any human had gone before and see what was out there. "Keep looking," Reed said. "There's something out here. I can feel it." Commander Mike Foster, Reed's second in command, looked up from his station. "Feeling things now, Captain? That's not like you." Reed smiled. "Call it instinct, Mike. 20 years in space teaches you to trust your gut." "Your gut better be right," Foster said. Earth Control is getting impatient. They want results, not more reports of empty space. They'll get their results, Reed promised, one way or another. The bridge fell silent as everyone returned to their work. Reed sat in his command chair, thinking. Humanity had been reaching for the stars for decades, but progress had been slow. The vast distances between solar systems made exploration difficult. The Pioneer was equipped with the newest drive system, allowing it to travel faster than any previous ship, but even so, the journey had been long. Captain, Lane's voice broke the silence. I'm picking up something on long-range sensors. It's not natural. Reed was on his feet instantly. On screen. The view screen changed to show a small object floating in space. It was clearly artificial, a metallic structure with extending panels that might be solar collectors. What is it? Foster asked, stepping closer to the screen. Unknown, Lane replied. But it's definitely not one of ours. The design is nothing, like our technology. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying it's alien? Lane looked up, her eyes wide with excitement. Yes, Captain. I believe we've just found proof that we're not alone. The bridge erupted in excited chatter. Reed raised a hand for silence. Distance to the object? About 6 hours at our current speed, Lane said. Reed nodded. Set course, Commander. Let's go say hello. 6 hours later, the Pioneer drifted alongside the alien structure. Up close, it was about the size of a small house, with a central hub and radiating arms that supported what were definitely energy collection panels. No signs of life, Lane reported. It appears to be an automated station of some kind. Possibly, for monitoring or communication. Reed studied the alien technology through the view screen. Can we bring it aboard for study? Lane hesitated. I'm not sure that's wise, Captain. We don't know what it does or who put it here. Exactly why we need to study it, Reed replied. This is what we came for, Doctor. First contact with alien technology. This could change everything. Foster looked worried. Captain, maybe we should report back first, get instructions. Reed shook his head. By the time we get instructions, we could have learned twice as much on our own. Besides, it's just a machine. After careful maneuvering, the Pioneer's crew managed to secure the alien station in their cargo bay. A team of scientists, including Dr. Lane, suited up to examine it. Be careful, Reed warned them. No unnecessary risks. Understood, Captain, Lane replied, her voice tinged with excitement despite her earlier caution. Reed watched from an observation window as the team approached the alien technology. This was the moment every explorer dreamed of. First contact with evidence of alien intelligence. What do you think, Mike? Reed asked his second-in-command. Who built this thing and why? Leave it out here in the middle of nowhere? Foster shrugged. Maybe it's a boundary marker or a traffic light. Stop here, don't go further. Reed smiled. If that's what it is, they didn't make it very obvious. Maybe they didn't expect us to get this far this fast, Foster suggested. Before Reed could respond, Lane's voice came over the comm. Captain, you need to see this. We've found what looks like a control panel and it's responding to our presence. Reed and Foster exchanged glances. On my way, Reed said, heading for the cargo bay. Whatever happened next would change human history forever. What Reed couldn't know was that the moment his scientists activated the alien device, a signal spread across the stars, a signal that would eventually reach the Galactic Council. And by then, it would be too late to heed Elder Fox's warning. Administrator Ben paced nervously in his office on Trell 9, a small mining outpost at the edge of Council space. The station hung in orbit around a barren planet rich in rare minerals. Outside his window, transport ships came and went, carrying workers and supplies. You should report this to the Council, said Leah, his assistant. Her green skin looked pale under the office lights. Strange signals are always reported. That's the rule. Ben ran a hand through his short gray hair. Rules, rules, always rules. With you, Leah. Rules keep us safe, she replied. Ben stopped pacing and looked at the data screen on his wall. It showed a signal pattern unlike anything he had seen before. 3 days ago, the station's sensors had picked it up. A repeating message coming from the direction of uncharted space. What if it's something important? Ben asked. If I report it, the council will take over. They'll send some official who knows nothing about frontier space. They'll make us wait months for answers. And if you don't report it? Leah asked, crossing her arms. Ben smiled. Then we investigate ourselves. We take my personal ship, follow the signal, and see what's out there. If it's nothing, no harm done. If it's something interesting. He shrugged. Maybe we get a promotion. Leah's eyes widened. Or maybe we get fired. Or worse. Live a little, Leah. 20 years on this rock following every little rule. Don't you want some excitement? Before Leah could answer, the office door slid open. Trell, the station's security chief, rushed in. Administrator, he said, his voice urgent. Long-range sensors have detected an approaching vessel. It's not one of ours. Ben felt his heart race. The signal source? Most likely, Trell replied. It will reach us in about 6 hours. Ben straightened his uniform. Prepare a welcome party, and Trell, keep this quiet for now. Trell nodded and left. Leah stared at Ben in disbelief. You're going to meet them without council approval? I'm going to welcome visitors to my station, Ben corrected. That's within my authority. Leah shook her head but said nothing more. Ben turned back to the window, watching the stars. After years of routine, something new was finally happening. Captain Reed adjusted his uniform as the Pioneer approached the alien station. Through the view screen he could see it was much larger than the monitoring device they had found. This was a full settlement, with ships coming and going. Life signs? Reed asked. Multiple species, Lane replied from her science station. Hundreds of individuals. The station has artificial gravity and atmosphere compatible with our needs. Reed nodded. They've sent us docking instructions. Seems they're expecting us. How? Is that possible? Foster asked. We've never made contact before. The monitoring station, Lane suggested. When we activated it, it must have sent a signal. Reed considered this. So they know we're coming, but we know nothing about them. Not the best way to start, but we'll manage. He touched a control on his chair. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to make first contact with an alien civilization. This is what we trained for. Stay calm, follow protocols, and remember, we represent all of humanity. As the Pioneer docked with the alien station, Reed assembled a small team in the airlock. Himself, Dr. Lane for scientific analysis, Commander Foster for security, and Dr. Miller, the ship's chief medical officer. Universal translators active? Reed asked. Lane nodded, checking the small device at her collar. They're designed to analyze language patterns and attempt translation, but they need something to work with first. Then let's give them something, Reed said as the airlock opened. On the other side stood 3 figures. The one in front appeared to be the leader, humanoid but clearly alien, with gray skin and large oval eyes. Behind him stood a female with green skin and a security officer of a different species, taller and more muscular. Reed stepped forward, hands open in a universal gesture of peace. I am Captain James Reed of the Earthship Pioneer. We come in peace and friendship. The gray-skinned alien tilted his head, listening. After a moment he spoke words Reed couldn't understand. The translator at Reed's collar hummed, processing the sounds. Welcome to Trell 9, came the translation, slightly delayed. I am Administrator Ben. This is my assistant Leah, and our security chief Trell. Reed felt a wave of relief. The translators were working. Thank you for your welcome, Administrator. We are explorers from a planet called Earth. Ben nodded. We have much to discuss, Captain Reed. Please, follow me. As they walked through the station, Reed and his team tried not to stare at the various alien species they passed. Some looked almost human, while others were wildly different. Floating creatures, beings with multiple limbs, entities that seemed made of light. Ben led them to a conference room with a large oval table. As they sat, Screens on the walls lit up, showing images of space. "You activated one of our monitoring beacons," Ben said. "It wasn't a question." Reed nodded. "We found it drifting in what we thought was empty space. We meant no harm." "No harm was done," Ben assured him. "But you should know that you have entered Council space. The beacon marks the boundary." "Council space?" Lane asked. "The Galactic Council," Leah explained, speaking for the first time. 300 species, thousands of worlds, united under common law and protection. Reed exchanged glances with his team. Humanity was not alone, but they were very late to a very large party. "We had no way of knowing," Reed said. "We're new to interstellar travel." Ben waved a hand dismissively. "Of course. No offense was taken. But now we must decide what happens next. Officially, I should report this encounter immediately." "Officially?" Foster asked, catching the nuance. Ben smiled. "I've been administrator of this outpost for 20 years, Commander. Out here, far from the Council's central worlds, we learn to be flexible with certain protocols." Leah frowned, but remained silent. "What are you suggesting?" Reed asked. "An unofficial exchange," Ben replied. "You share your technology and knowledge. With us, we share ours with you. We learn about each other before the Council becomes involved and things get complicated." "Complicated how?" Lane asked. Ben hesitated. "The Council has procedures for contact with new species. They can be extensive. Years of evaluation before full diplomatic relations are established." Reed considered this. "And if we agree to this unofficial exchange?" "Then we both benefit," Ben said. "You gain access to knowledge about the galaxy and its peoples. We gain understanding of your unique approach to technology." "Unique?" Miller asked, the doctor finally joining the conversation. Ben nodded. "The modifications you made to our beacon, they were quite impressive. You solved problems our engineers have struggled with for years, and you did it with what appears to be relatively primitive tools." Reed felt a surge of pride. Humanity might be new to the galactic community, but they weren't without their strengths. "I believe we can arrange something," Reed said. "A limited exchange of non-sensitive information and technology." "Excellent," Ben said, clasping his hands together. "We'll begin immediately." On the Council homeworld, Elder Vox stood in Grand Counselor Mira's private chamber. The room was opulent, with high ceilings and artwork from 100 worlds. "A beacon has been activated in Sector 47, Vox said without preamble. "The humans have reached our border." Mira looked up from her desk, annoyance flashing across her face. "One beacon among thousands, Elder. Hardly a crisis." "The signal was modified," Vox continued. "The humans didn't just activate it, they improved it. The transmission range has increased tenfold." "Impressive," Mira admitted. "But still, not a concern. The Centennial Gathering begins in 3 months. I don't have time for primitive newcomers." "You should make time," Vox warned. "The beacon is near Trell 9. Administrator Ben has a reputation for independence." Mira laughed. "Ben? That old fool has been buried on that mining station for decades. Even if he makes contact with these humans, what could possibly come of it?" Fox's 4 eyes blinked slowly. "That is what worries me, Counselor. We don't know. And in my experience, the unknown is rarely benign." Mira rose from her desk, her patience clearly at an end. "Thank you for your concern, Elder. I will have someone look into it. Eventually." As Vox left the chamber, he felt a deep unease. The wheels were already in motion, and no one was watching closely enough to see where they were turning. Deep in space, beyond the knowledge of humans or the Council, the modified beacon's signal continued to spread, reaching farther than anyone had intended. And in the darkness between stars, something ancient stirred, awakening from a long slumber. 6 months passed. What began as a simple meeting between Captain Reed and Administrator Ben had grown into something much larger. 17 worlds in the outer territories now traded openly with humans. Human ships, once rare visitors, were now a common sight at frontier stations. Reed, now Admiral Reed, sat in his new office on Trell 9. The station had become an unofficial embassy for Earth, a place where humans and aliens could meet freely without council oversight. "The latest reports, Admiral," said Commander Foster, placing a tablet on Reed's desk. Reed picked it up and scrolled through the information. "Trade is up another 30%. Human entertainment broadcasts are now reaching 23 council worlds and—" He paused, eyebrows rising. "Is this correct? The Volari have adopted Earth music into their religious ceremonies?" Foster nodded. "Apparently they find our classical music spiritually transcendent. Bach and Mozart are particularly popular." Reed leaned back in his chair. "6 months ago we didn't know aliens existed. Now they're praying to the sound of our music." He shook his head in wonder. "What's the council's response to all this?" "Still minimal," Foster replied. "They're treating us like a temporary distraction, something that will lose its novelty." "That's good," Reed said. "It gives us more time." "Time for what exactly?" Foster asked, his expression concerned. "The Earth government is thrilled with the trade agreements, but some officials are worried we're moving too fast." Reed stood and walked to the window. From here he could see ships coming and going, human vessels alongside alien craft of various designs. "Humanity spent centuries looking at the stars, wondering if we were alone," Reed said quietly. "Now we know we're not. But we've also learned something else, that the galaxy is more dangerous than we imagined." He turned to face Foster. "The information Ben shared with us about the Council, about their history, they're stagnant, Mike. 300 species all following the same rules, using the same technologies, thinking the same thoughts. They haven't had a major technological breakthrough in over a century." "And we have?" Foster asked. "We've had 3 just from studying that monitoring beacon," Reed replied. "Our engineers look at alien tech and immediately see a dozen ways to improve it, not because we're smarter, but because we think differently. We're not bound by their traditions, their ways of doing things." Foster frowned. "So what's our goal here? What are we working toward?" Reed's expression grew serious. "Survival. The Council might see us as a curiosity now, but that won't last. Sooner or later, they'll see us as a threat. We need to be ready when that happens." On the planet Volari, young Trin sat in his room, eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. On it, a human story played, something called a movie, about a small group fighting against impossible odds and somehow winning. "Trin." "Dinner is ready," his mother called from downstairs. "Coming," he replied, but didn't move. The movie was reaching its climax, the heroes making their final stand. His door opened, and his father stepped in. "Watching human broadcasts again?" he asked, his tone disapproving. Trin nodded without looking away from the screen. "They're amazing, Father. The humans think so differently from us." His father sighed. "The Council has warned about these broadcasts. They call them cultural contamination." Now Trin did look away, his eyes flashing with rare defiance. "The Council is afraid of new ideas. The humans aren't afraid of anything." "That's what makes them dangerous," his father said. Trin turned back to the screen where the human heroes were celebrating their unlikely victory. "No," he said quietly. "That's what makes them right." In the grand hall of the Council homeworld, the Centennial Gathering was underway. Representatives from all 300 member species had assembled to showcase their achievements and plan for the future. Grand Counselor Mira stood on the central platform, addressing the assembly. "For 1,000 years, the Council has maintained peace and prosperity throughout our space," she said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "Today we reaffirm our commitment to the principles that have guided us: unity, stability, and the gradual controlled advancement of all member species." Elder Vox sat in his designated place, watching with ancient eyes. Beside him, other elders shifted uncomfortably. They alone seemed to sense what was coming. "Before we begin the traditional presentations," Mira continued, "there is one matter we must address." She paused, and a hush fell over the assembly. Many of you have heard rumors about a new species encountered in the outer territories. These humans have captured the imagination of some of our more impressionable members. Vox closed his eyes briefly. Here it came. While we welcome cultural exchange and peaceful contact, Mira said, we must also protect our way of life. The rapid spread of human influence, unchecked and unregulated, poses a potential disruption to our carefully balanced society. Murmurs spread through the hall. Vox could see the representatives from worlds that had benefited from human trade looking concerned. Therefore, Mira continued, the Council proposes a containment policy. A quarantine zone will be established around human-controlled space. Trade and communication will be limited and monitored. This temporary measure will remain in effect until a proper assessment of human civilization can be completed. The representative from Valeri stood. With respect, Grand Counselor, my people have found great value in human cultural exchanges. Their art forms have enriched our spiritual practices. That is precisely the concern, Mira replied smoothly. Uncontrolled influence leading to cultural shifts without proper oversight. Another representative stood, this one from a mining world. Human technology has increased our production by 40%. Their methods are unconventional but effective. Effective, yes, Mira acknowledged. But have you considered the long-term consequences? Their approach to resource extraction differs greatly from our sustainable models. What might seem beneficial now could prove destructive in the future. One by one, Mira addressed the concerns raised by various representatives. Her arguments were reasonable, her manner calm and authoritative. To most in the chamber, she appeared to be the voice of wise caution, but Vox saw through it. This wasn't about protection. It was about control. The Council feared what it couldn't predict, and humans were nothing if not unpredictable. Finally, Vox rose to his feet. The chamber fell silent. An elder rarely spoke at such gatherings unless the matter was grave. I warned of the humans 6 months ago, Vox said, his voice showing none of the weariness he felt. I suggested we establish clear boundaries then when we held all the advantages. That opportunity is past. Mira's smile tightened. Then you support the containment policy, Elder Vox? I support wisdom, Vox replied. And wisdom tells me that trying to contain the humans now will only provoke them. They are curious by nature. Tell them they cannot go somewhere, and they will immediately try to go there. What would you suggest instead? Mira asked, a hint of mockery in her tone. Engagement, Vox said simply. Full diplomatic relations? Bring them into the Council as observers first, then members. Guide them rather than restrict them. Laughter rippled through the chamber. The thought of bringing such a primitive species into the Council seemed absurd to most. The Elder's concern is noted, Mira said, dismissing Vox's suggestion without a second thought. Now let us vote on the containment policy. The vote was overwhelmingly in favor. Only the representatives from worlds already deeply involved with humans stood opposed. The Council had spoken. Humans would be contained, their influence limited, their expansion halted. 3 days later, at the edge of what was now officially designated Quarantine Zone Alpha, 3 Council battlecruisers moved into position. Their mission was simple: establish the first blockade point and begin enforcing the new containment policy. Contact approaching, reported the sensor officer on the lead cruiser. 2 vessels, human design. Just 2? The captain asked, surprised. Our intelligence suggested they would respond with at least 5 ships. Perhaps they didn't take our warning seriously, his second officer suggested. The captain smiled. Then this will be a simple demonstration of Council authority. On the main screen, the human ships came into view. They were smaller than the Council vessels, with sleek lines and unusual configurations that didn't match any known design philosophy. Open communication channels, the captain ordered. Let's inform them of the new regulations. Before the communications officer could comply, the human vessels split apart, moving with a speed and precision that seemed impossible. One moment they were directly ahead, the next they had somehow flanked the Council formation. How did they? The captain began but never finished his question. Both human ships released a cloud of small objects, hundreds of them, spreading out to surround the council vessels. Weapons? The captain asked urgently. Negative, the sensor officer replied, confusion in his voice. They appear to be communication buoys of some kind. They're broadcasting on all frequencies. The main screen flickered, and a human face appeared. It was Admiral Reed, his expression serious but not hostile. Attention, council vessels, Reed said. We understand you've been ordered to establish a blockade. Before you proceed, I want to demonstrate something. The screen split, showing a view of space around the council ships. The small objects the humans had deployed were now forming a complex pattern, creating a network that encircled the blockade. These are communication relays, Reed explained. A new design based on your own technology but modified to operate at higher frequencies. Right now they're transmitting uncensored information to every world within 50 light years. Information about Earth, about our technology, our culture, our ideas. The captain stared in disbelief. You can't do this. The council voted without consulting us, Reed interrupted. That's poor diplomatic practice where I come from. Now, you have two choices. You can destroy these relays and prove to everyone watching that the council fears ideas more than weapons. Or you can return to your territory and suggest to your leaders that perhaps a conversation would be more productive than a blockade. The captain looked to his officers, seeing his own uncertainty reflected in their faces. Their orders hadn't prepared them for this. They were expecting resistance, perhaps even combat, but not this. We will report this to the council, the captain said finally. Reed nodded. We'll be here when they're ready to talk. As the council ships turned and departed, Reed allowed himself a small smile. Not a single shot had been fired, yet the message had been delivered with perfect clarity. Humans would not be contained. On the council homeworld, Grand Counselor Mira was about to learn that the storm she had dismissed so casually was now gathering strength at her very doorstep. On the far edge of known space, the science vessel Curiosity drifted silently. It was a joint mission, humans and scientists from several council races working together despite the official containment policy. Administrator Ben had calling in favors from old friends. Dr. Lane stood at the main sensor console, frowning at the readings. That can't be right, she muttered. Trell, the security chief from Trell 9 who had joined the mission as Ben's representative, moved to her side. What have you found? Some kind of gravitational anomaly, Lane replied. It's massive, but it doesn't match any known phenomena. She adjusted the settings, and the main screen filled with a visual representation of empty space. Except it wasn't empty. There was a darkness there, a void deeper than the space around it. It's moving, Trell observed. And fast. Lane nodded, running calculations. At its current speed, it will reach the outer colony worlds in less than a month. Trell's face paled. We need to warn the council. And Earth, Lane added. Whatever this is, it's like nothing I've ever seen. As they prepared an emergency transmission, neither noticed a small detail in the sensor data. The anomaly had changed course slightly, directly toward their position. It had detected them, and it was hungry. Grand Counselor Mira paced her private chambers, anger radiating from her in waves. Before her stood the captain of the failed blockade mission, his head bowed in shame. 3 battle cruisers, Mira said, her voice dangerously quiet. 3 of our finest ships, outmaneuvered by 2 human vessels without a single shot fired. They used tactics we've never seen before, the captain explained. Their ships moved in ways that should be impossible. And these communication relays they deployed, they're still operating? The captain nodded miserably. Our attempts to disable them have failed. They adapt, shifting frequencies faster than we can block them. Mira stopped pacing and stared out the window at the gleaming towers of the council capital. 6 months, she said. That's all it took for them to go from discovering our existence to humiliating our fleet. Perhaps Elder Vox was right. The captain suggested hesitantly. Perhaps we should engage with them diplomatically rather than— No, Mira snapped. I will not bend to this primitive species. Their influence is a disease spreading through our society. It must be contained whatever the cost. The captain shifted uncomfortably. With respect, Grand Counselor, our military options may be limited. Reports from the outer territories suggest the humans have been sharing their technological innovations with several worlds. If those worlds stand with humans, then they stand against the Council, Mira finished coldly. Prepare a full fleet. We will not be embarrassed again. As the captain left, Mira returned to the window. For 1,000 years the Council had maintained order. She would not be the one to see that order crumble, not because of some upstart species barely out of their own solar system. Her thoughts were interrupted by an urgent chime from her communication console. What is it? She demanded. Emergency transmission from the deep space science vessel Curiosity, her aide's voice replied. They're reporting— Grand Counselor, they claim to have detected the Devourer. Mira froze, her anger forgotten. That's impossible. The Devourer was driven away centuries ago. The transmission was cut off mid-sentence, the aide continued. We've lost all contact with the Curiosity. For the first time in her long career, Mira felt a chill of genuine fear. The Devourer was more than just an enemy. It was a force of nature, a living nightmare that had nearly destroyed all advanced life in the galaxy before the Elders' civilizations had united to drive it back. Verify this information, she ordered. And summon Elder Vox. Admiral Reed stared at the emergency message from the Curiosity. Dr. Lane's voice was calm but urgent as she described the anomaly they had detected. The transmission ended abruptly, with a burst of static. When did this come in? Reed asked. 20 minutes ago, Foster replied. We've tried to re-establish contact, but there's nothing. It's like the ship just vanished. Reed nodded grimly. Lane wouldn't panic over nothing. If she says this anomaly is dangerous, we need to take it seriously. Do we know what it is? Foster asked. Reed hesitated. Maybe. Administrator Ben shared some historical records with me a few months ago. There were stories about something called the Devourer, a semi-organic hive mind that attacked the galaxy centuries ago. The description matches what Lane reported. Foster's eyes widened. If that's true, then we're all in danger, Reed finished. Council and humans alike. He stood up, decision made. Prepare the fleet. All ships, combat ready. The containment policy, Foster began. Doesn't matter anymore. Reed cut him off. If this is the Devourer, we'll need every ship we have, and it still might not be enough. As Foster left to carry out his orders, Reed turned to the star map displayed on his wall. Dots of light represented human outposts and friendly council worlds. If the Devourer was really back, how many of those lights would soon go dark? 1 week later, the frontier world of Vantis fell silent. No distress call, no warning. 5 million inhabitants gone in a single day. The council sent 2 scout ships to investigate. Neither returned. 3 days after that, the mining colony at Proxys suffered the same fate. This time, a single shuttle escaped, carrying terrified survivors who spoke of massive ships that darkened the sky and strange creatures that seemed made of shadow itself. Panic spread through the outer territories. Refugee ships fled toward the Council Core worlds, bringing tales of horror and destruction. The Devourer wasn't just back. It was stronger than before, more ruthless, more efficient. The Council fleet mobilized, but too slowly. Centuries of peace had made them complacent. Their ships were impressive, but designed for ceremony and intimidation rather than actual combat. Their weapons were powerful, but standardized, every ship carrying the same armaments, using the same tactics. The Battle of Trell 9, 50 Council vessels faced 3 of the Devourer's world ships. It was over in hours. Only 12 Council ships escaped to carry news of the defeat. Administrator Ben was among the casualties. His last transmission to Earth contained all the data he had managed to gather about the enemy, information that would prove invaluable in the days to come. Elder Vox stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council. The chamber, usually so orderly, was in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, demanding action, answers, protection. Grand Counselor Mira, her composure cracked, banged her ceremonial staff for order. Gradually the noise subsided. "The situation is grave," she admitted, her voice strained. "In 2 weeks the Devourer has destroyed 7 worlds and defeated our fleet at every encounter. Our analysts project it will reach the core worlds within a month." A representative from the agricultural world of Loria stood. "What is our defense plan? How will you protect us?" Mira hesitated, and in that moment of silence everyone heard the truth. There was no plan. The Council, for all its power and history, was unprepared for this threat. Elder Vox stepped forward. The chamber fell completely silent now, all eyes on the ancient figure who had warned them of humans months before. "There is only one option," Vox said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the vast room. "We must ask the humans for help." Gasps and protests filled the air. Mira looked as though she had been struck. "The humans?" she demanded. "They are barely spacefaring. What could they possibly do against the Devourer when our own fleet has failed?" "The humans think differently," Vox replied simply. "They see solutions where we see only problems. They adapt where we follow procedures. They innovate where we maintain tradition." "They are chaotic," Mira countered. "Unpredictable, dangerous." "Yes," Vox agreed. "And that is precisely why we need them. The Devourer defeats us because it knows us. It knows how we think, how we fight, how we respond. But it has never encountered humans before." The chamber erupted in debate. Some representatives supported Vox's suggestion, while others rejected it outright. The argument might have continued for hours if not for the arrival of a messenger, who rushed to Mira's side and whispered urgently in her ear. The Grand Counselor's face went pale. She raised her hand for silence, and gradually, the chamber quieted. "We have just received word," she announced, her voice unsteady. "The Devourer has changed course. It is moving faster than predicted, bypassing our outer defenses and—" She paused, seeming almost unable to continue. "A human fleet has engaged the enemy at the Carillion Nebula." "Without our permission?" someone shouted. Mira shook her head. "Without our knowledge. They moved their ships into position days ago, preparing for the Devourer's advance." "What was the outcome?" Vox asked quietly. Mira looked directly at the Elder. "The battle is ongoing, but reports indicate the humans have managed to destroy one of the Devourer's smaller vessels. It is the first victory against the enemy since it returned." Silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. Then, slowly, representatives began to nod, to look at each other with new understanding. Even Mira seemed to accept what had become inevitable. "Open communications with Earth," she commanded. "Tell them." She took a deep breath. "Tell them the Galactic Council requests their assistance in the fight against the Devourer." As the messenger hurried away, Elder Vox watched the assembly with mixed emotions. They had finally recognized the truth about humans, but he feared the realization had come too late. The storm was no longer gathering, it had arrived, and it would take more than words to survive what was coming. Admiral Reed stood in the command center of the Unity, the largest ship in Earth's fleet. Around him, humans worked alongside aliens from a dozen council worlds. 3 weeks had passed since the first battle against the Devourer, and much had changed. "Status report," Reed ordered. Commander Foster, now his chief of operations, looked up from his console. "Our fleet is in position, Admiral. The Council ships have formed a defensive line around the core worlds as planned." Reed nodded, and turned to his new advisor, Elder Vox, who had insisted on joining the human fleet despite his age. "How long do we have?" Reed asked. "Hours, perhaps," Vox replied, his ancient eyes focused on the tactical display. "The Devourer never alters its strategy once committed. It will send its world ships directly at the core worlds, trying to overwhelm us with numbers. That's what they're expecting us to expect," Reed said with a grim smile. "Which is why we won't be there." Vox tilted his head. "You still believe this plan will work?" "I believe we have to try," Reed answered. "The frontal defense didn't work at Trell 9 or any of the other battles. We need something the Devourer hasn't seen before." He turned to address the bridge crew. "Everyone knows their role. This isn't just about Earth or the Council. It's about all sentient life in the galaxy. We are the last line of defense." As the crew returned to their preparations, Vox studied the human admiral. "You truly believe you can win, don't you?" Reed's expression was serious. "I believe we can survive. Winning comes later." On the Council homeworld, Grand Counselor Mira walked through the crowded shelter tunnels deep beneath the surface. Around her, civilians from dozens of species huddled together, fear evident in their eyes. Her aide hurried to catch up. "The evacuation continues, Counselor. Another 1,000 ships departed for the safe zones in the last hour." Mira nodded. "And our defense fleet?" "In position alongside the human vessels," the aide reported, "though many of our commanders are confused by Admiral Reed's strategy." "As am I," Mira admitted. "But the humans have earned the right to try their way. Their victory at the Carillion Nebula proved that." They reached a communications station where several Council military officers stood around a holographic display of the approaching Devourer fleet. 5 world ships, one officer noted grimly, each capable of destroying an entire planet. Our analysts predict they will reach us within 3 hours. Mira studied the display. "And the human plan?" The officer hesitated. "They've positioned their ships oddly. Small groups scattered throughout the system rather than a concentrated defense force. Some appear to be completely out of position." "There must be a reason," Mira said, though doubt clouded her voice. "There is," came a voice behind her. Mira turned to see a young Volari named Trin, one of the many who had embraced human culture before the Council's containment policy. "Explain," Mira demanded. Trin stepped forward, nervous but determined. "The humans don't fight like we do. They don't use standardized formations or follow predictable patterns. Each of their ship groups will act independently, adapting to the situation as it unfolds. Chaos is not a strategy," one of the officers objected. "To us, perhaps," Trin replied. "But to humans, adaptation is survival. They embrace chaos because it creates opportunities." Mira looked at the young Volari with new interest. "You've studied them?" Trin nodded. "Their stories, their history. Humans have fought countless wars among themselves. They've learned that the unexpected is their greatest weapon." For the first time in weeks, Mira felt a flicker of hope. She turned back to the display, watching as the human vessels continued their seemingly random movements. "Then let us hope," she said quietly, "that the unexpected is enough." Aboard the small strike vessel Defiance, Dr. Lane checked her equipment one last time. Around her, a team of human and alien scientists made similar preparations. "Are you sure about this?" asked Leah, Administrator Ben's former assistant who had volunteered for the mission to honor his memory. Lane nodded. "The data Ben sent before Trell 9 fell was clear. The Devourer isn't just a military force, it's a hive mind. Every ship, every creature is connected to a central consciousness." "And you believe we can disrupt that connection?" "That's what we're going to find out," Lane replied. "Our analysis suggests the Devourer communicates using quantum entanglement, instantaneous signals that can't be blocked or intercepted. But they can be confused," added Professor Krell, a Council physicist, who had been working with Lane. The ship's captain called over the intercom. 2 minutes to insertion. All personnel secure for high-speed maneuvers." Lane took her seat and strapped in. The mission was dangerous, perhaps suicidal, but if they succeeded, they might give the fleet the edge it needed. "For Ben," Leah said quietly. Lane reached over and squeezed her hand. "For everyone." The battle began suddenly and violently. The Devourer world ships emerged from hyperspace near the Council homeworld, exactly as predicted. What they found waiting for them, however, was not what they expected. Instead of a defensive line of Council vessels, they encountered only empty space. The trap was sprung a moment later, as human ships appeared from behind moons and asteroids, attacking from all directions at once. Each human battle group used different tactics, different weapons. Some fired conventional torpedoes. Others deployed new devices that disrupted the Devourer's sensor systems. A few simply rammed smaller enemy vessels, sacrificing themselves to create gaps in the Devourer's defenses. The Council fleet, which had been hiding in the shadow of the planet's largest moon, joined the attack as the Devourer forces began to scatter in confusion. Aboard the Unity, Reed watched the battle unfold. "Status of Operation Needle?" he asked. "The Defiance has reached the primary world ship," Foster reported. "They're initiating Phase 2 now." Reed nodded. "And our losses?" Foster's expression was grim. "Heavy. We've lost 37 ships already." "It'll be worth it if Dr. Lane succeeds," Reed said, though the weight of those losses showed on his face. Elder Vox stood beside him, watching the tactical display with amazement. "I have never seen such a battle strategy," he admitted. "Your ships move like they have minds of their own." "That's because they do," Reed explained. "Each captain has full authority to adapt and improvise. We gave them the objective, not step-by-step instructions." Vox nodded slowly. "Freedom within structure, chaos with purpose. That's humanity in a nutshell," Reed said with a small smile. The smile faded as alarms blared across the bridge. "The primary world ship is changing course," Foster announced. "It's heading directly for us." "They've identified our command vessel," Reed realized. "All power to shields. Prepare for impact." Inside the massive primary world ship, the Defiance crew fought their way through strange organic corridors. The interior was like nothing they had ever seen, half machine, half living tissue, pulsing with eerie light. "This way," Lane directed, following the readings on her device. "The central node should be just ahead." They entered a vast chamber filled with what looked like glowing brain tissue suspended in liquid. Tentacle-like cables connected it to the ship's systems. "The hive mind," Professor Krell whispered in awe. "The central consciousness of the entire Devourer force." Lane didn't waste time. "Set up the disruptors. We have 3 minutes before they find us." The team worked quickly, placing small devices around the chamber. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense. They were quantum oscillators designed to interfere with the Devourer's communication network. 30 seconds, Leah warned, watching the entrance. Lane made a final adjustment. "Ready. Everyone back to the ship." As they ran, Lane activated the devices remotely. Behind them, the brain-like structure began to pulse erratically, its glow flickering. Across the battlefield, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Devourer ships suddenly lost coordination, some stopping completely while others began firing at their own allies. "It's working," Foster exclaimed. "The enemy fleet is in disarray." Reed didn't hesitate. "All ships, press the attack. Target the secondary world ships first." The battle turned quickly. Without their unified consciousness, the Devourer forces could not adapt to the humans' chaotic tactics. One by one, the world ships fell to the combined might of Earth and Council vessels. The primary world ship, however, began to recover. Its systems were more resilient, able to function independently when needed. "The Defiance?" Reed asked. Foster shook his head. "No communication. They may not have made it out." Reed's jaw tightened. "Then we finish this ourselves. Prepare for direct assault on the primary target." "Admiral," Vox cautioned, "even damaged, that vessel could destroy half our remaining fleet." "I know," Reed replied. "But if we don't end this now, the Devourer will adapt again. It's learning from us with every encounter." The Unity led the charge, accompanied by the remaining human ships and those Council vessels brave enough to follow. They struck the wounded world ship from multiple angles, targeting the weak points identified in Ben's final transmission. For a moment, it seemed the assault would fail. The world ship's defenses held, and it began to power up what appeared to be a main weapon. Then suddenly a series of explosions erupted from within the massive vessel. The Defiance had completed its mission, destroying the hive mind from the inside. They did it, Foster said in disbelief. The primary world ship began to break apart, its destruction triggering a chain reaction among the smaller Devourer vessels still connected to it. Within minutes, the enemy fleet was in full retreat, fleeing, back toward the darkness between galaxies. 3 days later, a new gathering took place in the council chamber. This one was smaller, more solemn. Many seats remained empty, their representatives lost in the defense of their worlds. Grand Counselor Mira stood before the assembly, her usual confidence tempered by recent events. "The Devourer has been driven back," she announced. "Thanks to the combined efforts of Council forces and our human allies, the threat has been contained." She paused, looking to where Admiral Reed stood with Elder Vox. "But the cost was high," she continued. "Billions lost, worlds destroyed, and we have learned a harsh lesson about the nature of our existence in this galaxy." Reed stepped forward at Mira's gesture. "The Devourer is wounded, but not destroyed," he told the assembly. "It will return, perhaps in decades, perhaps in centuries. We must be ready when it does." "And how do you propose we prepare?" asked one of the council representatives. "Together," Reed replied simply. "Humans and council races, sharing knowledge, technology, and perspectives. Our differences are our strength. Your stability and our adaptability, your patience and our urgency." Mira nodded. "The Council proposes a new galactic charter, one that includes Earth as a full member world, with special advisory status on matters of defense and security." The vote was unanimous. As the session ended, Elder Vox approached Reed. "You have achieved what I thought impossible," Vox said. "You have changed the Council." Reed shook his head. "The Devourer changed the Council. We just showed them another way forward." "The paradox of humans," Vox mused, "is not that you are dangerous, though you certainly are, but that your danger is precisely what makes you our greatest allies. You imagine the worst so you can prevent it. You prepare for threats we cannot even conceive." Reed smiled. "That's our nature. We hope for the best. But prepare for the worst," Vox finished. "A wise approach in an uncertain universe." As they looked out at the stars through the chamber's great window, both knew that the galaxy had changed forever. The Council had finally listened, though it had almost been too late, and humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors or subjects, but as guardians against the darkness that lurked between the light. The grand hall of the Vorn High Command fell silent as Admiral Rex entered. His steps echoed against the cold metal floor, each sound marking his path toward judgment. The circular table before him seated the 12 most powerful beings in the Vorn Empire. Their gray skin gleamed under the harsh lights, and their 4 eyes, too large, too small, tracked his every move. "Explain your failure," Supreme Commander Draz said. His voice carried no emotion, which made it more frightening. Rex stood tall despite his wounds. The battle with the human ship had left him with a burned arm and a damaged pride. "The human vessel was not what we expected," Rex began. "Our scans showed primitive technology, but their weapons—" He paused, remembering the blinding flash that had destroyed 2 of his scout ships. Their weapons were far more powerful than their technology level suggested possible. A hologram appeared in the center of the table, showing the Earth ship Defiance. It looked clunky and crude compared to the sleek Vorn ships. "This outdated collection of metal and wires defeated 3 of our scout vessels?" asked Military Council member Kev. His voice dripped with disbelief. "Yes," Rex admitted. "And when we damaged it, they did not retreat. They fought harder. Science." Director Tull moved her long fingers over a control panel. The hologram changed to show data streams. "The scan data is concerning," she said. "Their ship uses nuclear power, an energy source we abandoned centuries ago. Yet they've weaponized it in ways we never considered. They use no safety protocols by our standards." Kev leaned forward. "What of their behavior patterns?" Tull displayed another set of data. "We intercepted their communications during the battle. Their language is simple, but their responses to danger are not. When outmatched, their brain chemistry changes. Instead of fear leading to retreat, it triggers aggression and problem-solving. The room grew quieter still. "How many ships do they have?" asked Draz. "Based on our scans of their system, we estimate under 500 war vessels," answered Tull. "Technologically inferior to even our smallest fighters. And yet they defeated your squadron," Draz reminded Rex. "Numbers mean nothing if their behavior cannot be predicted by rational models." Rex lowered his head. "The human captain, he did something no Vorn would ever do. When we targeted their engine section, he turned the damaged part of his ship toward us and accelerated. He used his own damaged vessel as a weapon." Murmurs filled the room. "Prepare the war fleet," Draz finally ordered. "These humans must be dealt with before they become a true threat." Captain Jack Miller of the Earth. Warship Defiance stared at his reflection in the small mirror of his quarters. A fresh cut ran across his forehead, and dried blood caked his short brown hair. The battle had been close, too close. A knock on his door broke his thoughts. "Enter," he called. Lieutenant Anna Davis stepped in, her uniform torn but her posture perfect. "Sir, Earth Command is requesting our full report. They're calling an emergency meeting of all fleet captains." Miller nodded. "Tell them we're on our way. How's the ship?" "Engineer Ross says the main drive is at 60%. Weapons are operational, but shields won't hold against another attack like the last one." Miller grabbed his jacket. "And the crew?" "7 dead, sir. 19 injured. Everyone else is shaken but ready." Miller closed his eyes for a moment, adding 7 more names to the weight he carried. "Those alien ships. They were just scouts, weren't they?" Davis nodded. "According to Ross's analysis, yes. Probably an advanced recon team. So there's more coming." "It wasn't a question." "Many more, sir." Miller followed Davis to the bridge. The normally bright space was now running on emergency power. Screens flickered and repair crews worked on damaged stations. Through the main viewport, Earth looked small and vulnerable. "Captain on the bridge," someone called out. "As you were," Miller said. "Get me Earth Command." The main screen filled with the stern face of Admiral Stone. "Miller, you look like hell." "Feel like it too, sir. Your encounter confirms what we feared. We are not alone, and we are not welcome." Stone's face was grim. "The Security Council is meeting now. Every nation is contributing ships to a unified defense fleet." Miller raised an eyebrow. "Every nation, sir? This isn't about borders anymore, Captain. It's about species survival." Stone looked down at something off-screen. "We're forming a defense line at Neptune's orbit. All available ships are being recalled and refitted based on your encounter data. The Defiance is damaged, sir. We'll need at least... You have 48 hours for essential repairs. Then you're needed at the fleet rendezvous. Your experience with these aliens makes you too valuable to keep docked." Miller straightened. "Understood, sir." "And Miller? That maneuver you pulled, using your damaged section as a battering ram. The brass is calling it reckless. It worked, sir." Stone's face softened slightly. "Yes, it did, and it gave us something important." "What's that, sir?" "It showed that these aliens, for all their technology, don't understand how humans fight when cornered." Stone leaned closer to the screen. "Get your ship ready, Captain. Humanity is counting on you." The screen went dark. Miller turned to his crew. "You heard the Admiral. We have 48 hours to get the Defiance battle ready." "Sir," Engineer Tom Ross spoke up from where he was fixing a control panel. He was a large man with hands that seemed too big for delicate work, yet he handled ship components with surprising grace. "I've been studying the scan data we collected on their shields. I think I might have found something." Miller moved to Ross's station. "What kind of something?" Ross pulled up a diagram on his screen. "Their shields operate on frequencies we've never used, but they have a pattern. If we retune our weapons to hit these specific harmonic points..." He pointed to several spots on the diagram. Lieutenant Davis leaned in. "We could cause cascading failures in their defensive systems." Ross nodded. "Exactly. It's like finding the resonant frequency of a wine glass. Hit it just right and it shatters." Miller studied the diagram. How long to modify our weapon systems? With a full engineering team and no interruptions? Maybe 36 hours. You have 30, Miller said. And Lieutenant Davis? Sir? Work with Ross. I want our sensor array recalibrated to detect their ships even when they're using that cloaking technology. Davis looked surprised. Is that possible? Ross scratched his beard. Everything leaves a signature. We just need to know what to look for. And now we do. Miller looked around at his tired, wounded crew. Each face showed fear, but also determination. Humans had been fighting against the odds since they first picked up stones against larger predators. This was just one more impossible fight. We have 2 days to turn this ship into something those aliens aren't expecting, Miller told them. Because when we meet them again, they'll be ready for what they saw last time. So we need to be something new. As the crew dispersed to their tasks, Miller looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an alien fleet was preparing to attack his world. They had better technology, probably better training, and likely overwhelming numbers. But they had made one critical mistake. They had attacked humans and expected them to behave logically. They had scanned Earth's warships, but failed to understand what made humans the most dangerous species they would ever encounter: an unbreakable will to survive, and the creative spark to turn disadvantage into victory. The real battle was coming, and this time, humanity would be ready. Science Director Tull moved through the Vorn research chamber with quick, precise steps. The walls around her displayed hundreds of data streams, all information collected from the brief but costly encounter with the human warship. Show me their communication patterns again, she ordered. The main screen shifted to display waveforms and language samples. Tull's 4 eyes narrowed as she studied the data. These humans rely heavily on electromagnetic signals, she noted to her assistant. Primitive but effective for their level of development. Her assistant, a younger Vorn named Lear, touched a control panel. We've analyzed their shield harmonics as well. They're using basic deflection patterns, nothing like our phase-shifted barriers. Tull's mouth formed what passed for a smile among her kind. A weakness we can exploit. The door to the chamber slid open, and military strategist Kev entered. Unlike most Vorn, whose gray skin was smooth, Kev's face bore marks of past battles, a rarity in a species that prided itself on fighting from a distance. Have you found a way to destroy them easily? Kev asked, his voice carrying a hint of sarcasm. Tull gestured to the screens. Their technology is primitive. Their communications can be disrupted. Their shields are basic. Kev moved to a different display and touched it. The screen changed to show images from Earth's information networks, what humans called the Internet. The Vorn had been monitoring it for months. Before you celebrate an easy victory, Kev said, look at this. He brought up historical records of human conflicts. These creatures have been killing each other for their entire recorded history. They adapt during warfare at a rate that defies prediction. He pointed to various images. In one of their global conflicts, they went from basic flying machines to jets that could break their sound barrier in just 6 years. Tull waved a dismissive hand. That was their past. Their technology advancement has slowed. Has it? Kev pulled up more recent data. Their civilian technology companies now produce new communication devices yearly. They've mapped their own genome and are beginning genetic modifications. They've even created primitive artificial intelligence. Still centuries behind us, Tull insisted. Kev's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of frustration. It's not their current level that concerns me. It's their rate of advancement when threatened. He turned to face Tull directly. We damaged one ship and now they know we exist. What will they become in the time it takes our main fleet to reach their world? Tull had no answer for that. Engineer Tom Ross wiped sweat from his forehead as he made the final adjustments to the Defiance's sensor array. The narrow maintenance tunnel was hot, and his large frame barely fit in the space. Hand me the phase coupler, he called out. Lieutenant Anna Davis passed the tool through the narrow opening. How much longer? She asked. Captain wants a progress report. Ross grunted as he connected several wires. Almost there. This is delicate work. One wrong connection and we'll fry the whole array. No pressure, Davis said with a slight smile. Ross chuckled despite his discomfort. The trick was figuring out what to look for. Those alien ships don't just bend light around themselves. They shift their energy emissions to frequencies we weren't monitoring. A spark flew from the panel and Ross swore. "Everything okay in there?" Davis asked. "Fine, just a discharge." Ross made a final adjustment. "That should do it. Let's test it." He crawled out of the maintenance tunnel, his uniform soaked with sweat. Together they moved to a nearby console. "Computer, run diagnostic on modified sensor array," Davis commanded. The screen lit up with scrolling data. "It's working," Ross said, his voice rising with excitement. "The modifications are stable." Davis studied the readout. "So if the aliens show up using the same cloaking technology, we'll see them clear as day," Ross finished. "And they won't know we can see them." Davis tapped her communicator. "Davis to Captain Miller. The sensor modifications are complete and operational." Miller's voice came through. "Good work. Both of you report to the bridge. We're approaching the rendezvous point." When they arrived, on the bridge, the view through the main screen took their breath away. Dozens of Earth warships were gathered in a loose formation near Neptune's orbit. Ships of all sizes and designs, some hastily converted from civilian vessels, others pulled from various national fleets, now formed humanity's main line of defense. Captain Miller stood at the center of the bridge, studying a tactical display. He looked up as Ross and Davis entered. "Engineer Lieutenant, your timing is perfect." He gestured to the screen. "Welcome to the Human Defense Fleet." Ross whistled. "I've never seen so many ships in one place." 87 vessels, Miller said, "with more on the way, but it won't be enough if we fight conventionally." He turned to Ross. "Your sensor modifications, can they be applied to the other ships?" Ross nodded. "The principle is simple once you know what to look for. We can transmit the specifications to the fleet." "And the weapons recalibration?" Miller asked. "That's more complicated," Ross admitted. "Each ship class has different weapon systems. They'll need individual adjustments." Miller frowned. "We don't have time for that." Lieutenant Davis stepped forward. "Sir, what if we create teams? We have the prototype working on the Defiance. We could send engineering teams to help the other ships implement the modifications faster." Miller considered this. "Good idea, Lieutenant. Make it happen." He turned back to the tactical display. "Admiral Stone is calling a command meeting in 1 hour. I want to present him with more than just defensive options." "Sir?" Davis looked confused. "These aliens came to our home and attacked without provocation," Miller said. "I don't want to just survive their next attack. I want them to regret ever finding us." Ross cleared his throat. "Captain, I've been studying the data from our engagement. Their ships are advanced, but they follow predictable attack patterns, almost like they're following a script." "How does that help us?" Miller asked. "It means they're not used to improvising in battle," Ross explained. "They rely on superior technology, not tactical flexibility." Miller's eyes lit up with understanding. "So we give them something they're not expecting." "Exactly," Ross said. "If we can share not just the technical modifications but our battle data with the fleet, we might be able to create coordinated counter-strategies." Miller nodded and turned to his communications officer. "Contact Admiral Stone. Tell him the Defiance has developed both technical and tactical countermeasures against the alien threat." As the officer carried out his orders, Miller looked out at the assembled fleet. "The aliens think they know what they're facing," he said quietly. "They scanned our ships, measured our weapons, and decided we were easy targets. What their scans couldn't show them was our greatest strength." "What's that, sir?" Davis asked. Miller turned to her with a grim smile. "Humans don't play by the rules when our survival is at stake, and we're about to change all the rules." Out in the darkness beyond Neptune, undetected by the fleet's standard sensors, a small Vorn observation craft watched the gathering of human ships. Inside, an observer recorded everything, preparing to take the intelligence back to the approaching Vorn warfleet. The observer had no way of knowing that, thanks to Engineer Ross's modifications, The Defiance could now see the supposedly invisible scout ship. The humans had gained their first advantage in a war that was about to begin. Fleet Lord Mez stood on the command platform of the Vorn flagship Inevitable Victory. Around him, crew members worked at their stations, preparing for what would surely be a quick and decisive battle. "Status report," Mez ordered. "All ships in position, Fleet Lord," his second-in-command responded. 200 warships ready for attack. Cloaking systems active. Human fleet remains unaware of our presence. Mez studied the tactical display showing the gathered human ships. Their formation was loose and disorganized. Exactly what he expected from a primitive species thrown suddenly into space combat. "Their defenses are still being organized," Mez noted with satisfaction. "This is the perfect time to strike." He straightened his tall frame and addressed the bridge crew. "The Supreme Commander has given us a simple task. We will eliminate this human fleet and open the path to their homeworld. Our superior technology and tactical invisibility guarantee our victory." The crew responded with the traditional Vorn battle salute, right hands forming fists against their chests. "Begin the attack sequence," Mez ordered. "First wave, decloak, and engage." On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Miller was in the middle of a strategy session with other ship captains when an alarm sounded. "Sir," the sensor officer called out. "Multiple contacts appearing at coordinates 227 by 104. Lieutenant Davis rushed to the sensor station. "The modified sensors are picking up energy signatures consistent with Vorn vessels. They're decloaking." Miller turned to the communications screen where the faces of a dozen ship captains showed varying degrees of alarm. "This is not a drill," Miller said calmly. "Implement the modifications we've shared and assume battle positions. Remember your assignments." As the other captains acknowledged his orders, Miller turned to his bridge crew. "Battle stations, execute Plan Thunderbolt." Across the human fleet, ships began to move with surprising coordination. Instead of scattering in panic or forming a traditional defensive line, they broke into smaller groups, each with specific targets. On the Vorn flagship, Fleet Lord Mez watched in confusion as the human vessels began to move before his ships had fully decloaked. "Impossible," he muttered. "They cannot see us until—" "Fleet Lord," his sensor officer interrupted. "The humans are targeting our ships. They're firing directly at our positions." Mez's four eyes widened in shock as he watched human weapons fire streak toward his still decloaking vessels. "How did they—" His question was cut short as the first Vorn ships reported direct hits. On his tactical display, 3 of his scout vessels were already showing critical damage. "Full decloak, all ships return fire," Mez ordered. The space around Neptune's orbit lit up with energy weapons and explosions as both fleets engaged. What should have been a surprise attack had turned into a chaotic, head-on battle. "Direct hit on the lead Vorn cruiser," Davis reported, a hint of excitement breaking through her professional tone. Miller nodded. "Keep firing. Concentrate on target group Alpha." The Defiance shuddered as it took a hit from a Vorn destroyer. "Shields holding at 64%, the defensive systems officer reported. Miller watched as the human fleet executed the battle plan they had prepared. Smaller, faster ships darted between the larger Vorn vessels, drawing fire and creating openings for the heavier human warships to target critical systems. "Sir, Admiral Stone's flagship is signaling," the communications officer announced. Admiral Stone's stern face appeared on screen. "Miller, your modifications are working. The Vorn didn't expect us to see them coming." "Yes, sir. We've caught them by surprise, but they still outgun us." Stone nodded. "Then it's time for Phase 2. The Defiance will lead the charge against their command ship." Miller's expression remained calm, but his voice tightened. "Understood, sir. We're on our way." The communication ended and Miller turned to his navigation officer. "Set course for the Vorn flagship. All weapons. Prepare for maximum output." Fleet Lord Mez could not believe what was happening. His carefully planned ambush had fallen apart in minutes. The humans were not fighting according to any known tactical doctrine. Their smaller ships were sacrificing themselves to create openings in his formation, while their larger vessels targeted his key command ships with weapons that somehow penetrated Vorn shields more effectively than should be possible. How are they doing this? He demanded. His tactical officer's voice was strained. They've modified their weapons to match our shield frequencies, and somehow they detected us through our cloaking fields. Impossible. They cannot have adapted. So quickly, Mez slammed his fist on the command console. Sir, the sensor officer interrupted. A group of human ships is breaking through our forward line. They're heading directly for us. Mez focused on the tactical display. Sure enough, a wedge of human vessels was pushing through his defenses, taking heavy damage but advancing relentlessly. At their head was a familiar ship, the same one that had survived their first encounter. Target that lead ship, Mez ordered. All available weapons. The Defiance rocked violently as Vorn weapons fire concentrated on it. Warning lights flashed across the bridge, shields down to 31%. The defensive systems officer shouted over the noise of straining systems. Engine 3 is offline, Ross reported from engineering. We can't take much more of this, Captain. Miller gripped the arms of his command chair as another hit shook the ship. Hold course. All power to forward shields and main weapons. Lieutenant. Davis looked up from her tactical display. Sir, we're not going to break through their defensive screen. There are too many ships between us and their flagship. Miller studied the battle for a moment. Then a grim smile formed on his face. Then we give them something else to worry about. He hit his comm link. Miller to all strike group ships. Execute maneuver Trojan. Davis's eyes widened as she realized what he was planning. Captain, that's the only way we break their line, Miller finished for her. Do it. Throughout the strike group, ship captains acknowledged the order. The formation of human ships suddenly broke apart, each vessel targeting different Vorn ships around the flagship. Sir, what are you doing? Admiral Stone's voice came through, alarmed. Creating a diversion, Admiral, Miller replied. While they focus on us, your heavy cruisers can target their flagship from the flank. The Defiance suddenly accelerated, aiming directly at a weak point in the Vorn formation. Mez watched in confusion as the human attack pattern disintegrated. They're breaking off the attack, his tactical officer reported with relief. No, Mez said slowly, understanding dawning. They're not retreating, they're dispersing to attack multiple targets. Before he could issue new orders, alarms blared across the bridge. Heavy weapons fire from Sector 7, the sensor officer shouted. Human heavy cruisers approaching from behind our defensive line. On the tactical display, Mez watched as a separate group of human ships that had hidden behind Neptune now emerged, firing directly at his command ship. The dispersed attack group had been a diversion to draw his attention away from this flanking maneuver. Increase power to rear shields, Mez ordered, but it was too late. The human cruiser's concentrated fire tore through the flagship's weakened defenses. The bridge shuddered violently as systems failed throughout the ship. Fleet Lord, his second-in-command reported, voice shaking. We've lost drive control and weapons. Hull breaches on decks 3 through 7. Mez stared at the battle display in disbelief. Half his fleet was damaged or destroyed. The humans had turned his ambush into a trap of their own. Signal the retreat, he said quietly. All ships to fall back and regroup at Rally Point Sigma. As the Vorn ships that could still maneuver began to withdraw, Mez looked again at the tactical display. The human vessel Defiance was still fighting, despite heavy damage. Its captain had led the diversionary attack personally, risking destruction to create an opening for the main strike. For the first time in his long military career, Fleet Lord Mez felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. The Vorn had ruled space in this sector for centuries. No species had ever defeated a Vorn battle fleet until today. The grand chamber of the Vorn Supreme Council echoed with angry voices. 12 tall chairs arranged in a circle contained the most powerful beings in the Vorn Empire. At the center, Fleet Lord Mez stood with his head slightly bowed, a position of shame among his kind. Supreme Commander Draz's voice cut through the noise. Silence. The room fell quiet immediately. Fleet Lord Mez has lost 37 warships to a primitive species, Draz stated coldly. This is unprecedented in our 10,000 years of expansion, Mez spoke without raising his head. The humans had unexpected capabilities. They detected our cloaked ships and modified their weapons to penetrate our shields. Science Director Tull leaned forward in her chair. Impossible. They cannot have developed such technology so quickly. And yet they did. Military strategist, Kev pointed out. Just as I warned they might. Draz stood, towering over Mez. You are relieved of your command, Fleet Lord. Return to your homeworld in disgrace. As guards led Mez away, Draz addressed the council. This human problem requires our full attention. I am declaring total war against humanity. We will mobilize our entire military might. One council member spoke up. Is that necessary? They are confined to a single system. For now, Draz replied. But a species that can adapt so quickly to our technology poses an existential threat if allowed to expand. We will crush them completely. He turned to another council member. Send emissaries to our allied species. Inform them that these humans represent a danger to galactic stability. Kev stood from his seat. Supreme Commander, I recommend we study their tactics further before committing our main fleets. They fight differently. Draz's four eyes narrowed. Explain. They don't follow logical battle progressions, Kev said. They sacrifice ships to create tactical advantages. Their captains take personal risks that no Vorn commander would consider. This makes their movements unpredictable. Then we will overwhelm them with numbers, Draz decided. Prepare the armada, all available ships. In the Oval Office of the White House, President Laura Coleman faced the leaders of Earth's major nations on a series of large screens. The mood was somber but determined. The Battle of Neptune bought us time, Coleman said. But our intelligence suggests the aliens, the Vorn, are mobilizing on a massive scale. The Chinese premier nodded. Our scientists are working day and night on the alien technology we recovered from damaged ships, as are ours, replied the Russian president. But centralized research is too slow. We need a new approach. Coleman stood and paced the room. That's exactly what I wanted to discuss. The old way of military research, secret labs, classified projects won't work fast enough. She pressed a button on her desk, and a new face appeared on the screens, a young woman with short hair and intense eyes. This is Dr. Helen Wright, a physicist from Carleton University in Canada. Doctor, please share your idea with everyone. Dr. Wright cleared her throat. Thank you, Madam President. I've been studying the Vorn shield technology data that was distributed to research teams worldwide. Their approach to energy fields is fundamentally different from ours. She displayed a complex diagram. But I discovered something unusual. By inverting their shield principles and combining them with our own approaches, we can create a hybrid system that's actually more effective than either technology alone. The German chancellor leaned forward. You've developed a better shield than the aliens who have had this technology for centuries? Yes, Wright said simply, because I wasn't constrained by their way of thinking. Their shields are elegant but follow very strict engineering principles. My approach is messier but more effective. President Coleman took over. Dr. Wright was working at a small university lab, not one of our major military research facilities. And therein lies my proposal. We distribute the Vorn technology data to every research team on Earth. Military, civilian, academic, private sector, everyone. The Japanese Prime Minister looked shocked. That goes against all security protocols. Exactly, Coleman replied. The Vorn expect us to behave like them, centralized, hierarchical, predictable, but humanity's greatest strength is our diversity of thought. She looked at each leader in turn. We need to unleash humanity's full creative potential. Thousands of teams working in parallel will develop innovations no single approach could discover. After a moment of silence, the leaders began to nod in agreement. Let's do it, the British Prime Minister said. Full global cooperation. 3 weeks later, Earth's orbital shipyards were busier than they had ever been. Factories worldwide had pivoted to war production with astonishing speed. And most importantly, the distributed research approach was yielding results that stunned even its strongest supporters. On the bridge of the newly repaired Defiance, Captain Miller watched in amazement as workers installed new systems that hadn't existed a month ago. Is that the right shield generator? He asked Engineer Ross, who stood beside him. Ross nodded. Version 2.0 already. They've improved it twice since the initial design. Lieutenant Davis approached with a tablet. Captain, we've received our new orders from Admiral Stone. Miller took the tablet and read quickly, his eyebrows rising. They want us to lead a mission into Vorn territory for intelligence gathering. Apparently, the new stealth system makes us effectively invisible to Vorn sensors, Davis explained. It uses their own cloaking technology against them. Ross grinned. Like fighting fire with fire. Miller handed the tablet back to Davis. How soon can we depart? The final systems will be installed by tomorrow morning. We can leave immediately after. Miller turned to look at Earth through the viewport. The blue planet seemed smaller, more vulnerable than ever before. Then we'd better get ready. We need to know what we're really facing. The Defiance slipped silently through Vorn space, its modified cloaking system making it undetectable to enemy sensors. The crew worked in near darkness with systems powered down to minimum levels to avoid any energy signatures that might give them away. On the bridge, Captain Miller and Lieutenant Davis studied the data they were collecting from Vorn communications and sensor readings. Sir, Davis whispered, I think you should see this. She transferred data to the main screen, which showed a map of Vorn-controlled space. Miller's breath caught as he saw the scale. That can't be right, he said. This shows hundreds of star systems under their control. Davis nodded grimly. And look at these readings from inhabited planets. The biosignatures don't match Vorn physiology. Miller leaned closer. They're other species. Enslaved? It appears so, sir. We're picking up transmissions from at least 7 different non-Vorn species, all reporting to Vorn masters. Miller's face hardened. They're not just invaders. They're conquerors. They've been doing this for who knows how long. Sir, the communications officer called softly, we're intercepting high-priority Vorn military transmissions. They're dispatching their main invasion fleet to Earth. Thousands of ships. Miller straightened. Record everything. We need to get this intelligence back to Earth immediately. As the Defiance carefully changed course to head home, Miller stared at the vast expanse of Vorn territory on the display. The situation was worse than they had imagined. Earth wasn't facing a simple border skirmish or resource conflict. They were up against an ancient empire that had been conquering and enslaving species for millennia. But now Miller understood something the Vorn didn't yet grasp. They had never faced an enemy like humanity before, and humanity now knew exactly what kind of threat they were fighting. Fleet Overlord Draz stood on the command platform of the inevitable conquest, the largest battleship ever constructed by the Vorn Empire. Around him stretched the vast invasion fleet, 3,000 warships arranged in perfect formation. The Lei Armada represented nearly half of the Empire's total military might, a force that had conquered hundreds of worlds over millennia. All ships report ready, Overlord, his second-in-command stated. Draz's 4 eyes surveyed the tactical display, showing their target the small blue planet called Earth. Begin the assault, standard conquest pattern. The massive fleet moved forward as one, entering faster than light travel for the short jump to the Sol system. The humans have had time to prepare, Draz noted. But nothing could prepare them for this. Admiral Ben Stone stood in Earth's central command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the planet's defenses. Representatives from every major nation crowded around the circular command table. The Defiance has confirmed it, Stone announced. The Vorn invasion fleet has entered our detection grid. 3,000 ships approaching in formation. Murmurs spread through the assembled leaders. How many ships do we have? Asked the Chinese admiral. 512 combat-ready vessels, Stone replied, plus the orbital defense platforms. President Coleman stepped forward. Are the defense platforms ready? Yes, Madam President. All 300 platforms are in position, disguised as debris or civilian stations. And the right shields installed? On all major vessels and platforms. We've also equipped 80% of our ships with the new hybrid weapon systems. Coleman nodded and addressed the room. Ladies and gentlemen, today humanity faces its greatest challenge. The Vorn believe their superior numbers guarantee victory. They think they understand what they're fighting. She gestured to a display showing Earth. We're going to show them how wrong they are. Stone stepped up to the tactical display. We will execute Operation Broken Mirror. Instead of spreading our forces evenly, we'll concentrate the fleet to protect these key areas. He highlighted several major population centers. This will leave other regions seemingly undefended. The Vorn will interpret this as desperation, Coleman added. They'll spread their forces to attack what they think are our weak points. Stone looked at each military leader in turn. Once their fleet is committed and dispersed, we spring the bow trap. The Vorn fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. On the bridge of the inevitable conquest, Fleet Overlord Draz studied the human defensive formation with disdain. They've concentrated their ships around their major cities, he observed, leaving the rest of their planet exposed. A foolish strategy, his tactical officer commented. No, Draz corrected. A desperate one. They don't have enough ships to defend their entire world. He turned to his communications officer. Order the fleet to spread out. Target pattern Omega. We will strike everywhere at once. As ordered, the Vorn Armada broke its tight formation, separating into hundreds of smaller attack groups that moved toward different regions of Earth. Overlord, the sensor officer called out. We're detecting unusual energy signatures around the planet. Some appear to be coming from what our data classified as debris fields. Draz waved dismissively. Sensor ghosts. The humans cannot hide their technology from us. Begin the attack. In Earth's command center, Admiral Stone watched as the Vorn fleet dispersed exactly as predicted. They took the bait, he said. All ships hold position. Wait for my mark. The Vorn attack groups moved closer to Earth, approaching what they believed were undefended regions. Stone's voice was calm. Activate defense platforms. Across Earth's orbit, what had appeared to be space debris, derelict satellites and civilian stations suddenly came to life. 300 heavily armed defense platforms hidden in plain sight, powered up their weapons systems. Defense platforms online, a technician reported. Target locks confirmed. Stone nodded. Fire. On the inevitable conquest, alarms blared as reports flooded in from across the fleet. Overlord, we're under attack from all sides, the tactical officer shouted. Energy signatures are appearing throughout Earth orbit. Draz stared in disbelief as the tactical display showed hundreds of new weapon emplacements that hadn't been there moments before. His dispersed fleet was caught in devastating crossfire, with ships taking heavy damage before they could regroup. It's a trap, he growled. Order all ships to reform defensive formations. But the confusion had already spread through the Vorn fleet. As attack groups tried to withdraw from the unexpected firestorm, they collided with reinforcement waves still moving forward. Sir, the communications officer reported, the human fleet is moving. On the tactical display, Draz watched as the Earth ships, previously holding position around population centers, now launched a coordinated attack against his fragmented forces. Captain Miller stood on the bridge of the Defiance, now commanding a special task force of 20 ships. All ships form up, he ordered. Our target is the Vorn flagship. Execute attack plan Spear. The Defiance and its escort ships accelerated toward the massive Vorn command vessel, which sat at the center of a protective formation of heavy cruisers. Sir, Lieutenant Davis reported from Tactical. The flagship is heavily defended. Their shields are unlike anything we've encountered before. Miller nodded. They're using their best technology now, but so are we. He turned to Engineer Ross. Are the new weapons ready? Ross grinned. Yes, sir. The phase disruptors are charged and locked on target. Fire when ready. The Defiance and, its escort ships fired simultaneously. Brilliant beams of energy shifting through multiple phases struck the Vorn defensive screens. Where conventional weapons would have been absorbed, these beams passed through the shields as if they weren't there, striking the hull directly. Direct hits, Davis shouted. Their primary shield generators are down. Miller leaned forward. All ships, concentrate fire on their engines. I want that flagship disabled, not destroyed. The task force pounded the massive Vorn vessel with precise fire. Despite its size and armor, the inevitable conquest began to drift, its main drives offline. Sir, Davis said, we've created a breach in their hull near the command center. Miller stood. Prepare boarding teams. We're going in. Fleet Overlord Draz could not comprehend what was happening. Reports of disaster came from throughout his fleet. The orbital platforms were decimating his dispersed attack groups. The human fleet was tearing through his defensive formations with weapons that shouldn't exist. And now, his own flagship was crippled, drifting helplessly. Overlord, his security chief called urgently. We have a hull breach in Sector 7. Human forces are boarding the ship. Before Draz could respond, the bridge doors exploded inward. Through the smoke came armored human soldiers, weapons ready. Behind them walked a single human in a captain's uniform. Fleet Overlord Draz, Captain Miller said, his voice calm. My name is Captain Jack Miller of the Earth Defense Force. Your ship is disabled, your fleet is in retreat. I'm here to accept your surrender. Draz stood to his full height, towering over the human. The Vorn Empire does not surrender. Miller didn't flinch. Look at your tactical display, Overlord. Your invasion has failed. You can either surrender and save the lives of your remaining crews, or we can continue this battle to its conclusion. For the first time in his long life, Draz felt uncertainty. He looked at the tactical display. More than half his fleet was destroyed or disabled. The humans had outmaneuvered him at every turn. How? He asked finally. How did a primitive species defeat the greatest empire in the galaxy? Miller's expression remained neutral. You scanned our ships, measured our weapons, and thought you knew what you were facing. But your scans couldn't detect our greatest strength. Which is, we adapt, we innovate, we cooperate. Miller stepped closer. And most importantly, we fight hardest when cornered, yet offer mercy when victorious. Draz's four eyes blinked in confusion. Mercy? Surrender now, and no more of your people need to die today. After a long moment, Draz lowered his head. I surrender my fleet. 1 week later, a formation of human ships escorted the defeated Vorn vessels to the edge of the solar system. On a dozen worlds throughout the galaxy, observers from other species watched the unprecedented sight, a Vorn armada in retreat. On an observation platform near Jupiter, President Coleman stood with Admiral Stone, watching the departure. What do you think they'll tell their leaders when they return home? Coleman asked. Stone's face was thoughtful. That they encountered something they've never faced before. Not just ships and weapons, but a species that functions differently than any they've conquered. In the distance, the last Vorn ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel. On a nearby asteroid, 2 observers from an ancient species watched silently. One turned to the other, its crystalline body reflecting the distant sunlight. The scans were correct, it said in a language no human had yet heard. Their warships aren't just vessels of destruction. They carry something far more dangerous. Humans who fight hardest when cornered, yet offer mercy when victorious. The second being's response was solemn. The galaxy will never be the same. In Earth orbit, the Defiance rotated slowly, its battle scars now badges of honor. On the bridge, Captain Miller looked out at the stars, wondering what new challenges awaited humanity now that they had announced their presence to the galaxy in such dramatic fashion. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together, with the same spirit that had turned certain defeat into unexpected victory.